We want to get back to our conversations in studio. We now switch gears to matters horticulture. And to have this conversation, we are joined by Stefano Sedola. He is the EU Chief Technical Advisor for Markup, Kenya. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, I hope I got your name right.
Yeah, you got my name right. And I am the Chief Technical Advisor for the Markup program, a program dealing with horticulture in Kenya, and it is supported and financed by the European Union and implemented by UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Agency. I'm very happy to be here today to discuss with you and share what we are actually doing in Kenya.
Well, let's just start with a little bit of numbers. The Horticulture Directorate yesterday said that the industry is set to lose about 20 billion shillings in earnings this year because of many issues, one of them being the Kenya Airways strike, as well as the drought that is ongoing. So I want to hear from you, what are the emerging issues in the horticulture sector?
Yeah, you touch a very critical point. The issue of the drought in Kenya has been affecting the horticulture, but the whole agriculture business. And I think this is climate change will affect adversely the horticulture activities, and a message we can convey to the leaders in the COP27 in Egypt currently is that we need to put centrality of water and agriculture to the climate crisis. It is fundamental we address this issue of water accessibility. Now, this is not the only challenge that the horticulture sectors are facing, and what we have experienced is that there are post-harvesting losses, meaning that the produce that comes from the field and ends to the table of the consumer or goes abroad is lost in between. And there are figures, they say it's up to, in the horticulture, 44%, which is a lot if you think that you know, the 44% of what is produced is get lost, either because it's not handled properly or because of a quality issue or food safety concern or standard, lacking of compliance of standards. Now, I wonder, these figures are from 2011, and it is the reference figures now for Africa, for Kenya. I think probably things have changed since then, and I'm really curious to know why we are not measuring that more adequately and ensuring that the traceability from the farm to the table, from farm to fork, is not better measured, to actually measure these losses in revenue for the farmers. That's what we are trying to do within the program, is to have an impact on the local communities, to improve the way they produce, increase their revenues as farmers, connecting to the market, creating market linkages, but also working with the regulatory institutions centrally, at the central level, to ensure that the standards are properly adopted and implemented, that the testing facility and laboratory are accessible, that the risk assessment is done correctly, and also that there is coordination between the different agencies so that there are not duplication of different certificates or registrations.
For Kenyan farmers to access international markets, of course there are some standards that have to be met. How is the program working with farmers to ensure that they are up to standard, or whether their produce is up to standard? And when you talk about the 40% post-harvest losses, how can those be prevented, and what tangible things are you doing at Markup Kenya?
Thank you for asking. It's a big problem, and but the big problem is sometimes they can be addressing with small steps. And our philosophy is to connect with the communities and have an impact with the communities, at the same time support the central agencies. And I can tell you the story of Veronica, a farmer from Busia. She's growing groundnuts, and she was growing for subsistence
Subsistence.
Subsistence, thank
Yes.
you. And she was able, after following some training and capacity building, actually to commercialize her products and to become enter into the trade. And this is because she applies some standards such as Global Gap. There are other standards we're working with. Global Gap is one of them. And so small actions, or for example, working with the extension officers in the counties, training them not only to understand what are the complexity and the challenges in the horticulture, but also actually to become themselves the teachers and the tutors and enlarging the knowledge to their farmers, to help their farmers. And I was talking today with 10 of these extension officers from different counties of Kenya, and they said, you know, they thank us to be able to empower them, could give them tools, give them knowledge so that they can actually support their farmers. And they were saying, after we learned, we trained, we were able to support 300 farmers, 400 farmers in another county. So that effect multiplies by itself without us being there.
Without you being there. For the farmers who are, most of the agriculture in this country is rain-fed. They depend on the rain, and of course with the impact of climate change and the weather patterns changing, how can farmers adapt themselves better?
I mean, we don't control the weather, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we see a devastating effect in the global south by the climate crisis. And I think that more mitigation measures, such as preventive measures, can help. Now, today, technology enables us to prevent the pest. We know that, for example, we can predict a pest coming on the basil leaves within 2 weeks, the occurrences. Now, using satellite images, using some simple artificial intelligence application, using and discussing with colleagues here in Kenya, there are many researchers that have published papers, they have developed applications, and so it is possible. Technology helps us to predict, and by predicting, to enable the farmers and to take better decisions using data. Problem is that, like, technology needs to be deployed, disseminated. So maybe there are good applications, good tools, but they're not used because we need to change the mentality. There is another important aspect, I think, is that in the farming world, people are over 50. Now they are less concerned with the future rather than, but we push young people, young generation, to go into farming, and we have created a very interesting podcast for youth. It's called Mazao Talks. We encourage the listeners to go and check it out on the major podcast platforms such as Spotify and others. We encourage youth to take a step, to take leadership in agribusiness. In agribusiness, I like that you've. Sorry, go on. Yeah, and that will help address the issue of climate, because youth are more concerned about climate because it is their future. When you mention about the young people, the actual average of a Kenyan farmer, the average age of a Kenyan farmer is 63. So that means there's quite a concern in terms of bringing young people onto the platform. And what some stakeholders have said, it is making agriculture attractive. And how can that be done? Today our friends and colleagues from Carlo said, fruits are sexy. And there are some fruits that are more sexy than others. Mango are very sexy. And passion fruits are sexy. And I think that, and now in Europe, we are actually looking at eating more fruits and vegetables because of the health. We are more concerned about the health. We eat more, and so this will see a growth in fruit and vegetable consumption. But then, and so I encourage, and then there are revenues. is a profitable business, the horticulture. So youth can actually enter into and make money. But not only that, they can use technology to make more money. And youth are interested in technology, but they can apply to farming and improve their revenue, their yields, and become better, create better revenues, basically. And yeah.
All right, so in terms of creating better revenues, especially in terms of horticulture, there is the place of value addition, especially to just stop the post-harvest losses. I mean, value addition will make sure there's a longer shelf life for these products. How can farmers be supported, whether it's in terms of cooperatives or just individual farmers, how can they be supported to venture into the manufacturing bit of agriculture?
Is a valid point, and you're making here is value addition is key. For example, you have mangoes, a lot of mangoes in Kenya. You cannot all, and they're competing with fresh mangoes that are maybe of better quality coming from other countries, Pakistan, for example. But the value addition, you can dry mangoes. You can dry mangoes, and there is a huge demand on dry mangoes, or dry pineapples, or dry snacks. Dry snacks now they call it, not even dry fruit, dry snacks, and this is very popular all across Europe. And but in order to do that, you need machine. You need trained people as well. And for that, we can learn from the countries that succeed very well. For example, Ghana has been exporting dry pineapples all over Europe, and they are very successful at that. But they receive a lot of foreign direct investment. So you need to invest. Wherever invest in machineries, in plants, in processing plants. Without that investment, it's difficult to compete on the international market. So my call is for investors, facilitate investors to bring technology into the countries for processing and creating value addition.
Facilitation of investors. You mentioned a bit about the extension officers. There's a very there's a high importance in terms of information that farmers have when they're doing their craft, and Kenya has a shortage of extension officers. What do you think the government can do to ensure that there is more awareness or information channeling to farmers? Because once you are informed, you can produce better, do better.
Yeah. I think we saw that with our own hands by talking to the extension officer of the government. They said for the first time we were able to be Farm Assurer accredited under the Global Gap. And he said this is very useful for us because we can really help like that. Now, if you give us the tool that the extension officer told us, we can actually support the farmers locally. Now, so I think that we need to support the extension officers at the county level as much as possible, providing them tool, capacity building means to actually disseminate the right knowledge. Because farmers, by definition, they are very conservative. In my village, I've been trying to explain to the farmers that they should change crop because planting sunflower seeds may not be the most profitable yield. But they tell me, you know, why we should change. We have been doing that for the last 25 years, 30 years, 50 years. And my father was doing that. And there is no way to make farmers change their mind unless other farmers or other person from the same community actually explain them that there is an advantage and there is a case. They can make more money, they can make better profit, better yields by improving their methods, changing the crops, using clean planting materials, for example. This is a big issue they've been facing with.
Let's talk about the conference that is going on right now at Safari Park, the Fruits, Vegetables and Herbs Conference. What does this conference aim to achieve? Yeah,
well, this is basically to identify and share challenges that industry, farmers, extension officers, government and agencies have in the field of horticulture. So it's all about sharing stories, sharing experiences, sharing knowledge, and about with practical example, practical stories, practical initiatives that how they have addressed the challenges we've been talking. But, for example, I was one of the things that came across was about the clean planting materials. Now, if you want to the farmers, normally they buy off the streets, the different, and they ask, is it crafted, the seedlings or the plant? Yes, but then when you go home and you plant, then the sexy mango that you have in mind, or the passion fruits that is big, nice and juicy, then it becomes very, very small and tiny, because the plant was not, the clean planting material was not properly done and with the proper procedures. And,
right. All right, just allow me to cut you short. In studio, we are with Stefano Sedola. He is the EU Chief Technical Advisor for Markup Kenya. Stefano, before we get back to our conversation on the conference, you have heard what O'Brien has just said. Do you have any comment on that, in terms of the conversations that are happening at COP27?
I think, as we were saying before, the centrality of the water and agriculture in the climate crisis is definitely a message that we need to send across, and we need to, our leaders, they need to take care of our the water crisis that is affecting the horticulture and the agriculture. And the technology, again, can help, technology innovation can help us there, but we need to take a stand.
Right, so before we joined O'Brien, you were talking about the Fruits, Vegetables and Herbs Conference that is ongoing and the impacts or what we expect from that conference. Kindly go on.
Yeah, I think the most important way to we learn by exchanging experiences, and we learn through the stories of other people. I think this is what the message that we wanted to share in the conference, and this conference is about sharing stories, experience, how other people have successfully managed to address the challenge in horticulture, whether it is post-harvesting losses, whether it is about pesticides, whether it is clean planting materials or creating market linkages. And there are plenty of different stories that and participants that are helping to visualize and explain their journey into that.
Explaining their journeys and, of course, learning from each other, very important. So as we move forward with all the challenges that the sector is facing, what do you foresee for the sector?
I think I mean, there are many areas of intervention, and cannot be tackled all at once. But what we are going to do is that we are going to strengthen now market linkages with those exporters that have been able to demonstrate the ability to export to European markets or regional markets. And we are going to continue the work with extension officers to engage the farmers, to increase the number of farmers that are engaged, so that we work at both ends of the value chain.
For maybe a farmer who is listening, what does it take to be able to access the international market? Because I know standards are very different. There are a number of batches of products from Kenya that have been, stopped from entering the market because of lack of meeting the standards. What can a farmer do to position themselves rightly?
Yeah, today the certification and the standards are as important as the product itself. So focusing only on the product is not enough. I think the farmer, they need to understand that certification, compliance is as important as a good, well-ripe mango.
So it's focusing on the whole business, not just the product.
Yeah, because, for example, when you aflatoxins are very dangerous for the human health. They give cancer. Today they were saying 30% of the liver cancer are due from the aflatoxin. I don't know if that figure is correct, but anyway, there is evidence of the cancer. But a mice, that is a grain of mice affected by aflatoxin, they look perfectly fine, but they are poisonous. So it's not enough. A good-looking product is not enough.
Yeah, a good-looking product is not enough. There's, of course, more that you need to do as a farmer. So as we come to a close of this conversation, I would like to give you 30 seconds to give us your closing remarks on this matter.
My closing remarks, well, first of all, thank you for having me here, Betty. It's really great to be able to share my experience. And my closing remark is that basically I want to encourage the youth to take and uptake leadership in the horticulture business. I think there is a great potential, a great opportunity, and to use technology to increase revenues. Use technology to increase revenues. Of course, the young people in this country are quite tech savvy, and you've been told use that technology to increase revenues, enter the horticulture industry. There is quite a potential and big markets for you there. Of course, you have to position yourself right, ensure you get the right certification and your product is up to standard. That brings us to the end of Biz Check this particular morning. Thank you very much for your valued company. My name is Betty Kiptum. You can link up with me on Twitter. I am at Betty Kiptum. KBC Channel 1 is the Twitter handle of the station. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Bye-bye.